Hi, I'm Rick Williams. I work for International Paper as the digital print expert. Inkjet inks are either pigment or dye. Dye-based inks dye the fiber. So in other words, it's just like a piece of material or cloth. When you dye the fiber, you dye the fiber itself. You do not, it doesn't sit on the top, it just dyes the color. So it dyes the paper fiber. The other inkjet ink is a pigment ink. And what a pigment ink is it's high water content, 95% water, 5% pigment. And what we do in our treated sheets is we help to wick the water into the sheet evenly, leave the pigment on the surface so it'll dry, and then as it moves through the press, it dries evenly so that post-converting there's no cockle in the paper, there's no problems with the paper when they post-convert. Now let's talk about indigo ink. Particles suspended in mineral oil. They will call them liquid ink. Do not call it toner, it's liquid ink. The polymeric particles that are suspended are laid one color at a time on a blanket. All right, so each color is laid on a blanket and then transferred by heat and pressure to the sheet. The other thing about an indigo press is it can take up to 7 colors. Orange, violet, and green. White ink, clear ink, fluorescent pink is one that people use. But you can put other inks in there as well as you can have PMS colors made in the indigo liquid inks. They're made by our RIT, and you can literally order a Pantone shade. You do need a treated sheet. Treated sheets are very important in indigo. The one thing about the paper is it's got to be durable because it's got to run around and be blanketed 4 times to 4 colors. So paper for an indigo press needs to be way more resilient than paper for an inkjet press. An inkjet press paper runs fairly easily, where an indigo sheet really needs to have some resilience to it to be able to get through the press that many times. We do have different sheets for both dye-based presses and pigment presses. On a dye-based press, we have a product called Diamond. The accent gives you total water fastness. If you print dye-based ink on a plain sheet of paper and get it wet, it will bleed. Have a barcode, a QR code, or something that people scan or gets scanned when they pay their bill. And if it gets wet, it will run unless it's water fast. Where Accent Diamond, which is our dye-based sheet, will not bleed at all. Treatment is in the sheet, not on the sheet, and it captures the dye so that it doesn't let the dye release. The other sheet we sell is Accent or Williamsburg with Image Lock or Color Pro. Those are based for pigment ink. With inkjet, the water content as high as it is, 95% water, you really need something to try to wick that water away and still dry it evenly. That's where our treatment comes in. Our treatment, which is in the paper, not on the paper, helps to wick the water into the sheet evenly, leaving the pigment on the surface or close to the surface, which gives you the color you're looking for but lets you dry the sheet evenly going through the press. All right, and it lets you run the press at full speed. You have marketing or any kind of direct mail, something you really want the consumer's eye to get caught, you really need a treated sheet like Image Lock or Color Pro. Treated paper, treat the paper is important. It's important in post-converting, it's important in what you get, your final product. If you're printing something that the final product's important, that you get great clarity of the wording, you get really good color, you need a treated sheet. What the treated sheet does is it helps to keep the dot from spreading too far. Because remember now, in an inkjet press, you're dropping dots of ink on paper. So you want that dot to only spread so far to block the white space, but you want it to set well enough and quick enough so that you get perfect clarity in your type. We've noticed that in a treated sheet, you can read type as low as 4 point. Even at my age of 61, I can still read a 4-point type printed on an inkjet treated sheet. On an untreated sheet, it is not as clear. The clarity of the print is not as good, and that's just black and white. Inkjet will run an untreated sheet. You will not get the color and clarity of it, especially if you use dye ink. You can run an untreated sheet, but it will bleed, all right, and it will be very dull. Depends on the quality you're looking for. It will not give you the color pop because even on a pigment ink without treatment, the pigment's drawn into the paper, which eventually will dull out the colors. In both sheets, in both Indigo and inkjet, the treatment is in the paper. The difference between an Indigo and an inkjet paper really has to do with how the inks are applied to the sheet. If you look at an inkjet sheet, it's literally dots put on paper, all right? Where an Indigo sheet is, the color is put on a blanket, it is then melted with pressure and heat to the sheet, one color at a time. Where in inkjet, all colors are laid down during the pass. On Indigo, water content's not important because it is used mineral oil. It's a polymer suspended in mineral oil. In an Indigo, you really want to look at high-end photograph, photo quality, something that lays down a lot of ink. Where on an inkjet treated sheet, you can make it more the everyday sheet, where you can run it constantly on a lot of different jobs. Indigo's costly, so you want to make sure it's on the highest end jobs, the ones where you can claim the greatest profitability. Where inkjet can run a lot of different things through it and still be profitable.